Dorothy Must Die, Chapter 36. The hunt was already on when I woke up. From the tiny window in my room, I watched the monkeys circling the grounds. There were dozens of them in the air, swooping and diving. I couldn't help realize that even though winged monkeys are controlled by magic, today they were tethered to long metal chains that fastened on thick collars at their necks, and were being held from the grounds by the tin soldiers, who just stood there, looking up at their prisoners like they were flying kites at the beach. I guess with one runaway monkey, they didn't want to take any chances that their magical power over the monkeys might be slipping. They were searching for her. I dressed slowly, feeling achy all over, and took an extra second to look at myself in the mirror. I half hoped that maybe Knox would appear there, but he didn't. I kissed Star on the nose and tucked her away safely in the drawer. I think she's getting used to it, or at least had stopped trying to scratch her way out of it. As I exited my room, I tried to inject a little pep in my step, to make up for the worn-out feeling in my bones. Maybe I could borrow some of Jilia's permasmile. That reminded me. I had to get her keys back to her. I'd find a way to do it at breakfast. My stomach growled. Apparently starting a fire, overusing magic, and chopping the wings off a monkey made a girl extremely hungry. Except there was no breakfast. Instead, the main staff was lined up from one end of the hall to the other. No food in sight. "What's going on?" I asked Sindra, the maid next to me, as I joined the line. "Surprise uniform inspection," she replied. Cinder blinked her extra-long eyelashes and shrugged. She didn't seem to have any clue that anything was up. Part of me envied her ignorance. Jilia marched up and down the line, making sure everyone was in order for the inspection. Her scent was vastly improved. Dorothy must have finally let her take the mouse out of her pocket. She looked sharper than she had in days, but not quite chipper. Jilia knew something was up, and it made me nervous. When she passed me, I saw the tiniest look of alarm flit across her eyes. Her mouth, probably slathered with permasmile, didn't move. My pulse raced as I tried to stay calm. Had I missed something? Did I have one of Maud's feathers stuck in my hair? Jilia stepped toward me. She licked her thumb and brusquely rubbed a spot behind my ear. A spot I couldn't have seen in my mirror. "Astrid," she spoke quietly without venom. "You've been slipping in your appearance lately. You're really going to have to learn to be tidier." When she got close, I took the opportunity to slip Jilia's keys back in her pocket. Her eyebrow arched at me. Maybe she felt the tug against her smock. But she didn't say anything more, just studied my face for a moment longer to make sure I was clean. I breathed a sigh of relief as she turned her back on me and continued her march down the line. The clomping shuffle of metal against marble approached, and then I knew for sure that this was no ordinary uniform inspection. Jilia stepped back and faced us. I felt the other girls tensing up at my side as I began to realize it wouldn't be Jilia conducting the inspection. Jilia cleared her throat. "Ladies, the Tin Woodman and his men are going to ask you some questions. Be honest and concise. As long as you tell the truth, no harm will come to you." I'd known this might happen, but I hadn't expected it so quickly. I thought I'd had some time to prepare my story. I steeled myself, willing my heart to slow, willing my face to stay smiling and placid as the Tin Woodman came lurching into the room, all business. Jilia curtsied as he approached. The Tin Woodman didn't acknowledge the gesture. The Tin Woodman made a quick work of the line, showing each of us a small picture of Maud and asking each of us about her whereabouts last night. "Well, I don't know if I recognize the funny little creature," Sindra said, her turn right before mine. "It's a monkey. They all look the same to me." I wanted to reach over and slap her. Of course I didn't. I didn't even turn my head. A moment later, the Tin Woodman shoved the picture in my face, and I realized that I didn't have to lie about whether I recognized her. The drawing of Maud was nothing like the Maud I'd rescued the night before. Her fur was neatly combed, and her wings were folded behind her back. She had a pink bow in her hair, and was wearing a little pair of green glasses. The little half-smile on her face was knowing and shy at the same time. I looked up at the Tin Woodman. I studied the seams that held his metal face together. "I've never seen her," I lied confidently, then tried to copy some of Cinder's stupidity. "I don't have any contact with the monkeys. They have lice." I remembered what I've seen of the Tin Woodman in the magic picture in Dorothy's parlor, mooning over the princess. I knew his weakness. It should have been like picturing him in his metal underwear, thinking about him writing bad love poetry to Dorothy in motor oil. At that moment, it didn't make me feel much better. He lingered in front of me, taking longer than he had with the other girls. The last time the monkey was seen, she no longer had fur, the Tin Woodman said. Or her wings. Use your imagination. I didn't have to imagine. The image would never leave me. No fur or wings? I asked, trying to conceal a wince at the horrible memory. Shouldn't she be dead? The Tin Woodman's eyes flickered. She will be. He stepped away from me then, holding up the picture for everyone to take a second look. This monkey escaped from the Scarecrow's lab late last night, he said. She was gravely injured. She could not have escaped without help from someone inside the palace. No one was saying anything. Abruptly, the Tin Woodman changed gears, his voice coldly demanding. Who is responsible for delivering hay to the Scarecrow's chambers? Step forward. Everyone in the line hesitated, but one by one, 4 of us stepped forward, including me and Syndra. The Tin Woodman stared right at me, though. He stepped close again. You smell like smoke, he said dispassionately. Could he even smell with that metal face? Was this a ploy? I blinked up at him innocently. My room was close to the fire, sir, I replied. Tell me your name, little maid. Astrid, I said, feeling less secure in my disguise spell than I had in days. Where are you from? Gilkin country, I said. Before he could ask any more questions, Julia cleared her throat loudly behind him. Your Greatness, she said, addressing the Tin Woodman. We have duties to attend to, and we're already off to a late start. Dorothy will be very disappointed if we don't. The Tin Woodman gave me a long last look. A long one. Maids. So good at getting every single detail right, he mused. He stepped away from me, addressing the rest of the line. If any of you have information on our escaped monkey, you know where to find me. And don't put the hay near the lanterns, you little fools. Metal hands clasped behind his back. The Tin Woodman strode from the room. Off to your duties, girls, Julia sing-songed when she was gone. Don't dilly-dally. There's more work to be done than ever. I was turning to follow Syndra when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Julia. Come with me, she said. I have a special task that you can help me with. That was unusual. My chest tightened, paranoia fluttering through me. Did Julia know? Had she figured out that I swiped her keys? That I used to help Maud escape? I studied her face, but it was as placid and cheerful as ever. I didn't have any choice except to go with her. As she led me out of the dining hall, I felt my knife whispering for me to call it. But I didn't. Not yet. I wasn't entirely sure what Julia was up to, but I didn't totally distrust her. I would only have one chance to run. I had to make sure I took the right one. Of course, this has to happen just as close to the ball, Julia chattered airily as we walked. The Tin Woodman and his men are ripping apart every room, turning over every cushion. They don't care that we'll have to clean it up before Dorothy's guests arrive, and Her Highness will not be pleased if even the slightest thing is out of place, not to mention that mess in the Scarecrow's room. It was the closest she'd ever come to complaining about anything. I followed along and listened, wondering what she was getting at. You know, she continued, I've worked in this place for a long time. I was here before the wizard even. I was here during the Scarecrow's rule. I was here when Ozma was still herself. I was here when Dorothy returned. That's a long time, I said, trying to sound noncommittal, but I was curious just the same. And not only about why she could appear to be a young girl after so many years working in the palace. I wondered why she was telling me all this. She had never opened around me before. Maybe that hug yesterday really made a difference. Maybe she just wanted to talk. Oz has been through many changes, she went on. Oh, people talk about the real Oz, but I don't even know what they mean by that. Oz has rarely stayed the same for long. That's the magic, of course, always changing. We were climbing the stairs now. Julia's smile was different from her usual phony mannequin grin. It was sad and far away. I have some fairy blood too, you know, she said. By now I wasn't even sure if she was talking to me or talking to herself. Not anywhere as much as Ozma, of course. Not enough to make much of a difference, but enough to know that things could have been different. Finally, we were at my room. I looked over at Julia questioningly. Why had she brought me here? I just want to make sure your room is tidy, she explained. There was no hint in her voice that anything was out of ordinary. They'll be searching all of them, of course, and I know that you can be sloppy from time to time. I wouldn't want them to find it out of order. It would reflect badly on me. She stared at me meaningfully. This was a warning. I don't know how much Julia knew, but she brought me here, taken away from my chores so that I could make sure everything was in order, so that I wouldn't get busted. Julia, She held up her hand. I'll expect you in the kitchen for dishes shortly. Without another word, she walked away. But when I opened the door and stepped inside, I realized it was too late. Everything was out of place. The sheets had been stripped. The mattress had been cut down the corner, feathers spilling everywhere. When I saw the open drawers, overturned on the floor, I felt like I was going to throw up. Star was gone.